Okay, this is level 4 right now.
I'm looking at myself.
It was like the catch.
Alright.
When it goes to the other screen.
Oh.
Push that.
Hey, welcome folks to the LGBTQ Voice. My name is Tracy Welch. I am with Dennis DeMello tonight. He'll be filling in for our Eileen Dugas, who is at the Pink concert with a bunch of our friends tonight. So here's my tattoo for y'all, raise your glass. Eileen, thank you for all the work that you do, and you are missed tonight. So we did have a guest tonight. We're waiting for them to come. So Dennis and I have well prepared. So if a guest does come throughout the show, you'll know. They'll just kind of come in and we'll introduce that guest. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties tonight with our guests. So our 14th episode tonight is violence against LGBTQ in our community or communities at large. And yeah, we want to talk about what's been going on with our seniors in the United States, our youth in the United States, and just all around what's been going on in our own community and as well as around the world with violence against LGBTQ people and individuals. So Dennis is going to talk to us about some of the issues going on. In New Bedford, our seniors want to be called mature. So our mature audience for our seniors.
All right. So as Tracy mentioned, we're going to talk about different statistics right now going on with, as you said, mature seniors. As openly gay, lesbian people age, they rely on caregivers, and if they can't have caregivers or friends or their partners help them, they move into assisted living. And basically, they either rely on them or, and sadly, as a lot of us know, with their age gap, you figure a lot of them are 60, 70, 80 years old. And back then, it was a lot harder for them to be gay, so they got kicked out of their houses, and they don't have anybody to help them where they're living. Many facilities lack trained staff and policies to discourage discrimination. 1.5 million gay and lesbian and bisexual people over 65 are living in the United States, and that's expected to be doubled by 2030. 2.7, sorry about that. 39% of elders had seriously considered committed suicide because the lack of help, support system. The LGBT elders deal with significant higher health issues compared to heterosexuals living in assisted living, included but not limited to high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, HIV/AIDS, and more.
So one of the things Dennis and I were talking about earlier is I have a son. I do, and I met a great guy, and one day realized I needed a great woman. So I have the luxury that as I get older, my son could, if he still loves me, could help me. There's a lot of seniors or elders out there, a mature audience, that don't have kids.
Right.
So they go through that transition of, who's going to take care of me? Our grandparents, we took care of our parents, we took care of our grandparents, but these mature, I keep saying seniors, he's going to hit me. They don't have that luxury. We talked earlier offline that our seniors throughout the ages have stepped up and made, marriage equality happen today and things that we have today. However, now they go into assisted living, they have to de-gay themselves.
Correct. Yep.
So some things we talked about were, one of the stories we read, they went to the home and said, "Oh, my wife passed away," and they got hit and abused by other seniors that were there, the staff that were there. The staff was not giving them the medication they needed. So a lot of people will de-gay. They will bring their husband or wife's pictures out. When people ask them, you know, do you have any kids? Well, no. Well, a lot of people find that odd today.
Yep.
That most people in their 60s or 70s have some sort of kid. And there's some elders out there that even today, even 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, you look at somebody and you know they're gay. There's just that gay sense, that gaydar that people have. So they have to kind of worry and watch themselves as they age. And we talked about the health benefits of our LGBTQ. Some of their doctors, they don't want to tell them they're gay. They don't want to deal with those issues, so they hide those issues, and that hurts their health, you know, later on in life. So we kind of wanted to start our show off with our LGBTQ seniors, because we talk about our youth a lot in our community. And there's also the Fairhaven Council on Aging that has their, Wednesday night supper club. So with the network, things that we do in our community, the Fairhaven Council on Aging is actually one of the members of our community. So Connie, I think, was on our show. Tom was on the show twice now. And actually Tom is going to help us with New Bedford Pride. There's a lot that goes on with our LGBT community that we just wanted to make sure that our seniors were represented, and we wanted to kind of talk about them first. We actually had some really nice questions to ask our guests, and unfortunately they weren't able to be here, so we're going to kind of change it up a little bit and just go into bullying right now. So domestic violence was our topic, was our guest was going to talk about tonight. So we're going to work on maybe the bullying aspect of what's going on. So bullying in general, 28% of grades 6 to 12 experience bullying. That's heterosexual, LGBTQ related, all combined. So 20% of those are 9 to 12th grade. That means 8% are up to 6 to 9, and the other 20% has experienced bullying of some sort. It doesn't have to mean that they're LGBTQ. However, 9 out of 10 teens have reported being bullied at school, LGBTQ. So 9 out of 10. So how was it when you were going to school? Were you out there?
When I was in high school, I graduated in 99. It was right around then that you started seeing more gay children, lesbian children who had no problem being, you know, who they were. Excuse me. In my class, we actually had a lesbian couple. We didn't have any openly gay men at the time. I wasn't out until after high school, and they never got bullied. People left them alone, talked to them. They were treated like anybody else would treat any other couple. So it wasn't bad. We also didn't have any gay straight alliance at my high school at that time. That didn't happen until, I want to say, either a year or two after they started the chapter over at Vogue.
Vogue, yeah.
Yep, they went to Vogue, and then everything just went up and up. I actually went there a couple of years ago, and I noticed that they actually have their own Gay Straight Alliance office for any student to go in there, receive help, get help. So it was actually nice to see.
Which is terrific. Actually, Eileen Dugas, which is our network coordinator, Ashley was at the Vogue this past week talking to their GSA, and she has another appointment scheduled to go talk to them, let them know what MB Agley and what our youth group does for New Bedford, Fall River, our local area. So I have a couple of more statistics, folks. LGBTQ youth are 2 times as likely to have been physically assaulted, kicked, or shoved. Talk about the bullying. I myself went as Nativity Prep 2 months ago. They were doing a community event where they took and asked businesses around to come and talk to their age groups. So we did the 10 and 11-year-olds, and then we did the next week the 12-year-old group. And the 12-year-old group asked us about bullying. How do we stop bullying? And I think I said this on one of our other shows. And I said, when you're on your bus and you're sitting on your seats and somebody walks by and somebody sticks their leg out and they trip you, just say that's not cool. Help the person up.
Right.
Everybody laughs, everybody giggles, and that's what, continues I call it abuse. On Facebook the other day, there was a kid beating a kid up and everyone was clapping and hollering and raving. I'm like, that is violence against, general bullying in school. But I know what our topic tonight is LGBTQ. LGBTQ, 4 in 10 say the community isn't accepting. 30% of all completed suicides have been related to sexual identity crisis. So today, we used to say, somebody committed suicide, doesn't mean that they passed away from it. Today, it's actually they completed suicide. So NB Agley, our youth group, it's ages 14 to 24. Eileen and I know she's not here, but hi Eileen, how are you doing tonight? We're 2 of the 4 adult advisors for NB Agley. And 4 years ago, we had 2 kids that completed suicide. We actually had 4 that had tried suicide. Unfortunately, we lost 2 youth to suicide. And the DA's office actually stepped in and came in, the ADA, and actually met with our youth 2 times. The first time she came in, she wanted to hear their stories, how can they help, what's going on, and she just cried and cried, and she said, I need to come back a second time and hear these stories. And that's when the DA's office did a summer camp for our kids for the week, and they got to get it, off the streets, out of the scene, and did something, really, really wonderful. I know it says flip my page, I keep looking what I'm at. I just want to tell you guys that our show hopefully will continue to move on and progress, and we need ads and sponsorship for our show. So you can contact Leo at NewBedfordGuide.com and talk to him about trying to sponsor the show. You can do a whole show of just you. You can come in as one of our guests and talk about your business and kind of support the LGBTQ network that hosts this show. As well as 50% of the ad money goes to the network now. It used to be 25%, but Mike said, you know what, we want to help you guys out, we want to get you guys to the next step. And we have different shows that we do, not different shows, different things in our community that we do. So Mondays we have Pride Cafe, that is part of South Coast Equality, that is under the network. Tuesdays we're here. Wednesdays we started tutoring for NB Agley, so it's ages 14 to 24. And then we have tutoring, that's Wednesdays. And Wednesday nights, we have a group that we just started about a month or so ago, February 21st, I believe. And it's actually 8 to 13. We actually named it last week the Rainbow Club. So the Rainbow Club is ages 8 to 13, and it's your youth and your parents. So we actually have a couple of kids that go every week, and it's just nice to see that we can start at an earlier age and maybe not need NB Agley going forward. Maybe we work on the 8 to 13 and take care of the issues, the concerns, and the whatnot, so that they don't have violence against them. They're not getting kicked or hit or beat or spat on. All that is violence against LGBTQ. So I talked about the Wednesday. So Thursday we have an NB Agley night, and it's ages 14 to 24, and that's 5 to 7. First Fridays, the first Friday of every month, it is actually youth-driven, peer-led, without adult support. Even though our peer lead is over 18, it's just without us. So they can kind of hang out, kind of do music, a movie, play games, basically whatever they really want to do within our guidelines of the show, of our space. As well as Sundays, we started a gay AA called Sober and Out. So on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., you can go and take advantage of that as well. So, yeah, we talked about the seniors. And did you have any other statistics about the seniors?
For the seniors, no, but I have hate crimes in general.
Yep, go for it.
According to the FBI, they released their statistics last November. More hate crimes were carried out in the United States last year, with an uptick in incidents motivated by bias against Jews, Muslims, and LGBT people. Among others, according to the new FBI data, there were more than 6,100 reported incidents of hate crimes in 2016, up from more than 5,800 the year before. The FBI said in a report based on data submitted by law enforcement agencies across the country. The number of hate crimes increased for a second consecutive year, as well as was the case in 2015. The largest share of victims last year, nearly 6 in 10, were targeted because of bias against the victim's race or ethnicity.
Cool. Do you want to check and see what we got going on? Anybody say hey on our Facebook page?
Yeah, why not? Let's see.
He's filling in for Eileen tonight, so he gets this tonight.
Jane Castiel, hi Jane. She said, this is really sad. This shouldn't be happening in this day and age. It's because people weren't taught to respect others who are different than others. God made us all different. I love all people in all walks of life.
Cool.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. If anybody has any comments that you want to put on there, any questions for us, just hit us up, and we're glad to read them. So one of the things that when Mike from the Bedford Guide asked us to do this show, we sat down with him and talked about, violence is going to be one of our shows, that you and I, if you were Mike, we couldn't go on vacation together to certain places.
Correct.
So I could be killed. So I had actually just kind of did some research that I'd love to go to Jamaica. I can go to Jamaica as a gay woman. You cannot.
Correct.
It is against the law for you. However, as a gay woman in Jamaica, if something happened and I got hurt or abused because I'm gay, the government won't do anything about it.
Yeah, you're pretty much on your own.
Yeah, so I'm not going to Jamaica, as much as that's something I would really, really like to do. So we looked at Samoa. Same-sex activity is illegal, but being transgender is not.
Which is kind of interesting because normally, like you said,
Yeah.
it's reversed.
Yeah, so it's kind of, one of those odd things. And then we looked at Zimbabwe. You can be considered filth and beheaded. So I actually had like 20 different places that you definitely don't want to go if you're LGBTQ. I mean, violence could be spat on to death, years of imprisonment that we saw, 5 years to 14 years. A lot of them were 14 years. And a lot of it has to do with the British colonies. They had all over different countries, and they kept those laws, and they kept certain things. So I kind of thought that was funny when we were doing our research. So in 2017, the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Program actually did a survey of violence against LGBTQ. So I was kind of disheartened with how many homicides we've had. In 2012, we had 25. In 2013, and this is the United States, we had 18. In 2014, we had 20. 2015, we had 24. 2016, we had 28, plus the 49 from Pulse.
Right.
And in 2017, there were 52.
So it is climbing.
So we went from 25 to 52 from 2012 to 2017. As much as everyone says, the United States is a great place to be, it's a great place to live, we're going to ask our guests this. So when I asked this earlier, over half of the homicides occurred in 5 states. And Dennis actually guessed 2 of them. So Texas had 7, New York had 6, Georgia had 5, Louisiana and Florida had 4 related homicides. So, when we talk about places to travel, I was very fortunate in 2007 to go on an Olivia excursion. It's all women, all inclusive, and I went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And Olivia does a lot of safe traveling. We say safe, but it's safer than me going to Jamaica.
Yeah, yes.
And I met a couple from Florida. They work for the same company. One works in HR and one works in management. And they actually have 2 separate households, yet live in one. Her mail goes to her house, her mail goes to her house. Yet they live at one because they could be fired. So when we talk about, violence against LGBTQ, we just said that 4 people, there were 4 homicides in Florida last year.
Yeah.
Never mind the 49 from Pulse that had happened. Some of the things, out of those 52 reported last year, 22 were transgender women of color. So transgender women is a male to female transitioning for you folks out there that don't know what transgender woman is. 71% of victims were of color. 67% were under the age of 35. How old are you?
I'm going to be 37 next week.
Ding ding. And 59% of those homicides were used by a gun. So some of the things are like, it's quick and painless, hopefully
Right.
not so much, but boom, you're dead.
Right.
But God, a gun, and we talk about the gun laws, and we don't get political on this show too much, because I have my say, and everybody has their own say. But 2017, 45% of homicides of queer, bi, gay, cisgender men were related to hookup violence. So when we talk about hookup violence, that means you took an online ad, personal ad, Tinder, what do you guys call them? Help me out.
Tinder, Grindr, Manhunt, Adam for Adam.
And we were talking about this earlier, that could be why personal ads aren't on Craigslist anymore.
Yeah, yep. They took them down, I want to say, either last week or the week before, due to new sex trafficking laws.
Yeah. So 45% of all the homicides are because you were looking for a date or you were looking for a hookup.
Correct.
Think about that, and that's almost 50%. So think about this, folks. LGBTQ people out there, Massachusetts, we're very lucky to be where we're at.
Yep.
We still have the issues where we're at, but this is across the United States. that people are out there looking for you. We need to be more careful.
Yes.
You know, we talk about our youth, and some of the things that we talk about is, you know, go on a date with your pal. Meet somebody in a public place.
Yep.
Don't go to someone's house. Don't go to, you know, hook up at, what do you call it, a hotel, things like that. Yes, we understand that people want sex, and I totally get that. However, you've got to be more careful today.
Correct.
I mean, 45%. I mean, that when I read that statistic, I was like, oh my God.
And if you are going to do it, you should at least tell somebody where you're going, send them the person's information, so that way you're at least covered. If they don't hear from you, they can forward everything to the police.
Or maybe, God forbid, something does happen to you, they could maybe backtrack.
Correct.
You know, because that's where we're at today, guys. We need to be more protected. So one of the things that we did is we did some research about the ages. So out of those 52%, 18 and under ages were 8%, 21% were ages 19 to 25, 38% were 26 to 35, 12% were 36 to 45, 13% were 46 to 55, and 4% were 45 to 65. So those are just a percentage of the ages. So we're kind of looking at that the 26 to 35-year-old, and those are the ones that are usually online.
Right.
Those are the ones who got that app. Because again, I'm 53 years old, and I'm like, you want me to do what? I said, I'm like, Dennis, here's my phone. You know, I'm just like, no. Even my son came over the house yesterday to help me get Comcast back. I'm like, can you just call? Can you just do it for me? You know, I'm just, you know, I don't know if I'm past that age or not. So along with some of the statistics that, you know, we reviewed and we looked at, relationships to suspected offenders. So basically the people that killed me.
Yeah.
So we find one of those people. So 32% victims knew who did it. 32% was a stranger pickup, and we just talked about the 45%. 26 were strangers they didn't know. So like we said, sometimes you can recognize a gay person by hey or who, whatever it happens to be, and 26% ended up getting killed. And stranger police violence were 9%. So 9% of those across the country were from police officers. So those are the things that are just like really, really disturbing for us.
Yeah.
So one of the things I just want to talk about, you know, our New Bedford Police Department real quick. We're very, very fortunate, and this is me speaking, and Dennis can speak, because Dennis is going to tell us a story. When the Pulse incident happened last year, in 2016, we had our New Bedford Pride 2017, and at La Place, our local gay bar, on 20 Kenyon Street, shout out to La Place, the police were at the corner all night long. And the reason why I know that is I walk around, I hired 2 security guards ourselves. I have one at the front door checking IDs, and I have one that walks around and makes sure we're safe. I'm not saying that, I mean, at any point in time, I mean, look what happened at Providence Place Mall.
Right.
It wasn't LGBTQ related, it's just violence is violence.
Right.
But I want to make sure that we're more safe. Can we be totally safe? No. But can we be more safe out there? Yes. And a shout out and kudos to the police for being out there all night long. Every time I looked out, there was a cruiser parked under the underpath right there. Underpass, and making sure that we were more safe, which I totally appreciate. Every time I can, I give a shout out to the police. So you have a story about what happened at your house.
Last year, January, I had come home from work. Our home was, you know, recently purchased, and you've been there and you've seen all the work that we had to do. We had just put up a fence, maybe less than a couple of months beforehand, and somebody decided to spray paint go away fags.
Yeah, this is like a 50-foot fence-ish,
whatever.
Yep.
So
it's
right
like,
in our driveway.
It's not like a gated one. Oh, it's
right.
The whole yard.
Yep. And you literally have to come into the driveway to see the fence. So they spray painted go away fags. Now, I had come home. I didn't realize it. I went downstairs. I was talking to my father-in-law and my brother-in-law. And I had asked them, I said, you know, were you guys painting? And they said, no. And I was like, well, the house smells like spray paint. So they were like, nope, nothing. So I went upstairs, I come back out, take out the trash, and I'd seen it. And I was like, oh, you gotta be shitting me. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
So I went downstairs, I got them, they looked at it, and my father-in-law's face, you could just tell him that he was just disgusted. He was just really, really disgusted. For us living there, I mean, yeah, it's not something you want to see. We were more upset that somebody ruined the hard work that he was doing, that we were doing. And yeah, obviously by, you know, saying that to us. at the start, none of us knew what we wanted to do. We didn't know if we wanted to call the police, you know, do whatever. So I had taken a picture of it, and I posted a picture of it on my Facebook.
Yeah.
My friend Alexis, who helps run a New Bedford watchdog group, you know, updating everybody who lives in New Bedford what's going on. She sent me a message and she said, you know, I want to post it. She's like, you know, people should know what was done. So I talked it over with my husband and I said, do you want me to post it? And he's like, you know what? Go ahead, post it.
Yeah.
So then somebody from New Bedford Guide had seen the post, sent me a message and asked if they could post it. And I said, you know what? They said, at first, we just wanted to keep it private because, you know, we felt embarrassed, obviously. You know, here we are with the fence and we had to take a garbage bag and tack the garbage bag to hide it. So I was like, you know what? Go ahead. I went to work the next day and, you know, my husband Jason texted me and he said, Standard Times is here. And I'm like, Standard Times is there?
Hello.
Yeah. And so I'm like, you know, what had happened? He goes, well, you know, I talked about my mother and my father and they said we should definitely make a police report just in case something else happens, somebody else comes back. So they came and they interviewed everybody, they talked to everybody, and the police were incredible. They came, they talked to us, they canvassed the neighborhood, they talked to everybody in the neighborhood. We found out that, you know, several people had cameras, but stopped short right of our house.
Yep.
And everybody who lives in that neighborhood are all seniors who live there maybe like 30, 35 years. We had a family come over and tell us that they've been living there for maybe 10 to 12 years. They were very disappointed to hear that happen. If they weren't going to stand for it. We had another gentleman come over and let us know that he lived down the street. He actually bought a second camera, and his second camera now points up the street past our house.
Good deal.
It was, I don't want to say amazing to go through something like that because it's not, but the after effects of all that happening was really amazing because we went from feeling, you know, whatever to feeling like, you know, accepted from everybody in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And because of that,
Come on in.
how you doing?
Our guest is here.
Oh, I am sorry.
That's all right. We're glad
I'm
to have
so
you.
sorry.
Yep. Can we get him on camera?
Sit where, anyway?
Yep.
Or here?
Nope, right next
There's
to
good.
Dennis. Yep. I'm going to probably throw that page away. So Dennis was just talking about, we're going to introduce our police chief, Joseph Cadero. I'm going to say his name wrong. Go ahead and say it.
That's all right, Cordero, it's fine, that's
Definitely.
okay.
So Dennis was just talking about the incident that happened at his home and thanking the police department for what they did because the word faggot, go faggots, say it,
Go away facts.
go away faggots was at his house.
Yep.
We were just complimenting the police how they were at the place last summer when we had our Pride event and they parked in the corner all night long, and I noted that, and Dennis was just talking about how great the New Bedford Police Department is for what happened at his house and his neighbors coming in and helping and supporting, and one of his neighbors actually put a second camera at their house to kind of shoot up the street, so if something happens at their home again, that they'll be able to, you know, help the police a little bit more. So, all right, so I'm just gonna finish a couple of statistics here, and then we'll go back to your questions.
Sure.
So the causes of the homicides we talked about, the 52 in the United States. So the blunt force trauma was 13%, gun violence was 53%, stabbing was 21% of the deaths, police shooting unfortunately was 6% of the, drowning was 2%, and strangulation was 4%. We were just going over some of the statistics that 80% increase of hate violence homicides in the United States since last year, and that 52 of those were not including the Pulse, so it's 52 plus the 49 from the Pulse attack, Pulse shooting in 2016. I always get it confused with that Pulse attack, God help us. And the same thing with the police. In 2016, we had a commemoration of our Puzzles attack, and we did a candlelight vigil, and the police were actually escorted us down to a Perfect Place, our youth center, just to make sure that we were safe and that things were good there. So I'm going to move my notes over. Then we got some questions. Yeah, take your coat off. Stay a while. It's good.
Yes, I'm really happy to be here, and, you know, it really thrills me to hear when I hear about folks complimenting our police department, the men and women of the New Bedford Police Department. And at the end of the day, it should be no surprise because we're all in the same community, regardless of whatever. And we're here to help each other out and work with each other. And we're talking about human beings after all, right?
Oh, definitely.
Why should we expect anything less in terms of equal, mutual, and fair treatment and respectful treatment?
You know, it's funny, we look around and we got the melting pot here of all different races, religions, and yet for our NB Agley kids, HIV has been on the rise for years now, and it continues to grow, and it's ages 14 to 24. Men having sex with other men and transgender women, and it's a killer for us that we, in our community, we say this and we see it all the time, but these people don't come out because of the violence that could occur. Family heritage, they're going to get kicked out of their homes. We have homeless youth, and we have a homeless show coming up in May that we're going to address some of the issues of our homeless youth, things like that. But one of the reasons why we have our NB Agley is because of the issues that are going on. And we just talked about, you missed the suicide and stuff, but 4 years ago, 2 of our kids completed suicide, you know, and I don't know, I just threw my statistics over there. But it's just really hard. You have the seniors one?
Yeah, it was actually up. 39% of seniors actually committed suicide because they don't have any help while living, you know, in assisted living.
Yeah, because they don't have kids that take care of them.
Nope.
It's really sad when we talk about suicide, you know, at any age and for whatever reason. But we know that many of these cases, there's more reasons to live than not to live. And when you're talking about folks being afraid to come out because of hate and violence, I think this is one of many steps that are taking a positive direction of having this dialogue and acceptance and tolerance of one another. I think for our community, we do have a high level of tolerance and diversity, but there's still some cultural barriers and some religious barriers that are preventing that. But the continuous dialogue and conversation between folks in varying statues of life and in our community goes a long way to help those that are fearful, afraid of isolation, afraid of hate, afraid of their own peers treating them different, of it becoming a professional barrier for them. The more we have these dialogues and the more we get to change the culture, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The more we're accepting, the more we stand up for one another as human beings, first and foremost, I think that will go a long way.
Well, early in the show, we just started on February 21st out of our youth center 8 to 13 group. And we have a couple of steady kids that come with their parents every week to talk about how we can help, what resources we can give them. 8-year-old little kids, transgender, 8-year-old, that don't know what's going on. How do I deal with it? How do I deal with bullying? And it just amazes me that 8 years old, these kids know what they're going through. We have a show coming up on 5/1 of sexual orientation versus gender identity. So we'll talk about more about that. But you had some questions you wanted to ask the chief.
Yeah. On the New Bedford Police, do you know how many domestic violence per month that you guys receive, and how many are repeated calls?
So I don't have the exact number for you. I can tell you our domestic violence calls for the year probably we go up to 3,600 DV calls a year. And then we do, and I can have that stat for you if I had known, we do track multiple calls for same victims or same offenders, because when you talk about the dynamics of domestic violence, you have what we call serial batterers. They jump from victim to victim, right? They find people that easily control, have power and control over, and that's the kind of folks that they go to. And by the same token, there's a phenomenon that there are victims that are also attracted to batterers who have power and control. But I can get that number for you. And our domestic violence unit, now that we're talking about it because it's a service that we provide, we have a DV unit, and we were one of the first in the state to have a domestic violence unit that works at night, civilian advocates that will help any victim, regardless of gender, sexual preference, all that stuff. We'll help them and guide them to get a restraining order. We'll help them guide them to get services, counseling services if they needed, support, help them with a SAFE program to get out, connect them with the right services. And they work from 6 at night till 2 in the morning. And then we also have that same service Monday to Friday during the day. And the 6 to 2, 6 at night to 2 in the morning, that's 7 days a week. So, you know, we take it very seriously.
Do you know how many LGBTQ versus heterosexual calls that you get for domestic violence?
So strictly concrete numbers, I do not, but I can tell you that we are starting to see an increase. And the biggest increase that you're starting to see is on the homosexual side, right? Especially male to male, right? Because it's very easy to camouflage that, right? Two guys having a fight in front of a bar, right?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe there was two people that have a substantial relationship. Very easy to cover up. Even when you go to emergency rooms, I would say, at least in the Commonwealth, if not in many parts of the country, you know, they'll screen, right? The triage nurses, they'll screen for DV. So that is now being much easier to screen out because of the education piece, right? Our medical professionals now are seeing that more and more often, so they can screen that out and get services, you know, for that segment of our population. But it is up a little bit. I can get you some numbers on that if you'd like more concrete numbers.
Well, years ago, I mean, if it was a man and a wife got into a fight, usually the man would get arrested. Two gay men, they'd arrest them both. And if it was two women, whoever the bigger woman was, they would take that one away.
Right.
You know? So one of the questions, you know, Dennis was going to ask about training. How much training do you guys get, or the police officers get in domestic violence?
So they get an extensive amount of training in the police academy, first and foremost. And then every year we do 5 days of in-service training. It's 40 hours of in-service training. And varying on the year, that component could be 4 hours, it could be 8 hours, it's set by the state. And then we do ongoing trainings through our training bulletins that we send out on case law, things of that nature. There's some new changes that are coming out now on procedures on how police are managing some DV cases, so we push that right out through roll call training and training bulletins. I feel we have a very well-trained police department in terms of domestic violence because we were ahead of the curve. You know, going back to, I think, 2003, I'm sorry, Sergeant Ribeiro started the first domestic violence unit in the state. So we've been pretty much ahead of that game, right along on the cutting edge.
So out of that training, how many hours are like allocated to LGBTQ, like issues, concerns, transgender?
Right, so there's where we have some more room for growth, to be honest with you. We have more room for growth, but it's happening, you know. These dialogues happen because what you're also seeing that folks inside our profession are coming out. So, you know, lesbians, homosexuals, transgender, folks are coming out that are carrying a badge.
I have a few friends that are on the police force, and I asked one of them if they wanted to come on our show one day, and they said, Tracy, I can't. She said, listen, she goes, we already have a target on our back by being a cop. I don't need to target another target that they know I'm a gay cop. And I said, no, I totally understand where you're coming from, and they were very respectful for me, and obviously me for them. My dad was a cop when I was a kid in Franklin for 13 years. He was a sergeant, so I have so much respect. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good and bad everywhere.
Absolutely.
But I like to make sure that people know that there's definitely good in New Bedford and where we're at.
So here's just the good news on that piece right there. The good news is this. You can see the evolution, the progression, right? So when I started on the job, the way we managed just domestic violence, period, was very, very different. As a matter of fact, the law at one time in this country was you could beat your wife with an object that was no bigger than the width of your thumb, right? It was absolutely legal. And that wasn't all that long ago. We're talking about probably the 50s, right? You think about it, that's not that long ago, you know, 67, 68 years ago, right? So we've evolved quite a bit, and especially in the 80s, when you've seen that evolution, it really fast forward, and you can see that progression really moving really fast in this segment of the domestic violence that we're talking about. Even internally for police, very difficult when we had female police officers join the police department. Now it's not a big deal. It's easy peasy, right? And that's the same thing now. The folks that are coming out that are wearing, you know, the blue suit, carrying a badge, it's becoming easier because the pathway is becoming easier and more acceptable and more tolerant. So I bet you if we fast forward 5-7 years from now, it'll be a lot easier for you to get someone on your show that carries the badge that is, you know, a gay, lesbian, or homosexual, or transgender up here.
So we talked about, one of the questions it's mine. The community, do you utilize the gay officers actually for support?
I think what's happening, because some of them are members of what we call our employee assistance program. There are peer leaders.
Yep.
So a lot of that is happening. How much of it is we don't really want to know because folks want confidentiality, so that is happening quite a bit. And those that I'm sure we have some that are not ready to come out, and those conversations that counseling is going on, you know, in behind closed doors. But they have a support group, and that's not something you would have had here maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago, and that's not that long ago. You know what I mean?
So we'll ask the police chief the question we were going to ask about the 5 states.
Oh, yes,
Go ahead.
yeah. I don't, you remember the 5 states?
Sure,
was?
out of 52 homicides that happened for LGBTQ last year, most of them were in 5 states.
Yep.
Can you guess what 5 states they were?
Can I guess? Well, I'll give it a try. So let's go with Texas first.
Texas is 1.
Let's go with Texas. Let's try maybe Florida.
2.
Yep.
Then I'm going to go to maybe South Carolina.
Nope.
Virginia.
Nope. So I'll tell you. So
Going off.
so New York had 6.
I was going to try New
Texas
York.
had 7. Georgia had 5. Louisiana and Florida each had 4.
Yeah, Louisiana, Georgia. Yeah, there should have been easy picks for me.
Yeah,
But I got 2 out of the bat.
You did.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did.
yeah, he got 2. I was like, well, that was pretty good. That was really good, you know. So Dennis just started to flip over. So we talked about our bullying. So do you guys get calls for bullying in school, like for the kids?
So the good news is we have a pretty good, robust, and very proactive school resource officer program. Great relationships with the school department, period. We consider them a very good partner. And as a matter of fact, every year, in the last couple of years, I meet with all the principals at the beginning of the year. I bring my command staff, the captains, to meet them all. And then I have the captains go meet all the principals at the beginning of the school year, so we have those relationships. And police officers as well. So we do get the calls. There's a lot of bullying programs that are going on in schools. We have some initiatives that we're putting out in schools that we do not have an SRO. We hope to start going to those publications. There's like coloring books for the younger kids, but not just having them color, having those dialogues, start those conversations, build relationships. Of course, there's youth court in New Bedford, which I just came from. I'm serving a judge on there that addresses issues like bullying and mistreating of one another. So there is a lot of programs in the city, and we're a part of it. I'm proud to say we're a strong part of those initiatives. But bullying is what we really have to look at. As we know as adults, most people have been involved in bullying in one way or another. If you start to look at the dynamics of bullying, you either were a bystander, and a quiet bystander, an aggressive bystander, an active participant, or you're on the other side of it, the victim. And sometimes you swap from both sides, right? So and you talk to adults and you ask them, everybody has a story, and no one's forgot it because it impacts us. The old thing of sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt us is BS. Yeah. The truth of the matter is names do hurt us, and the impact is our psyche, impacts our emotions and our ability to grow, right? So we take that very serious, and in some cases, as we've seen across the country, it's led to mass violence in schools.
Yeah, and social media.
And social media.
Yes.
Social media is really literally killing us.
Look at the suicide, the girl who told him, yeah, go ahead, kill yourself, and she's in jail, right?
Yeah, you know what the really thing, you just nailed it really hard, is the social media, these phones. So you remember when we were all young and kids and we were in school and bullying, it ended at 2:30, you went home, especially if you didn't live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
This thing keeps on going.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop at 2:30.
Correct.
It just keeps on going.
Yep.
It's horrific.
So one of the things I had is some good statistics for you guys. So 2014 to 2017, violent crimes is down 31%. What do you attribute that to?
In New Bedford,
Yeah.
and even nationally, they're seeing a big trend on that. You know, it's really hard, because if we could pinpoint that silver bullet, we'd all be impacting. But I think it's a mirage of a formula, right? For New Bedford, I think it's people are getting engaged.
Yeah.
I really believe that people are getting engaged, they're getting involved, from the school department to the police department to citizens. Everybody's really, really getting involved. And that is the big change, I believe, in the dialogue. That's the big change. When people get involved, when we start caring about one another, when we start to address problems, when we start to volunteer in a variety, from foster parenting to the Boy Scouts, the Boys and Girls Club, to your organization, all these varying volunteerism that's going out there, addressing this really complex society that we live, all these different levels, that starts to change when we start to care about one, genuinely care about one another, genuinely caring about it. Sometimes it's just a smile, holding the door, saying, hey, what's going on? Can I help you out? You were talking about suicide. Sometimes a smile saying, hey, what's going on? Can change someone's mind, right? And I think that's what's going on. I really believe. And the more we get engaged and involved and take that caring that we have here in New Bedford in particular and transition that into action, I think that's the difference.
I was going to tell the story, but another story about La Place. I was telling Dennis offline. About 15 years ago, we're at La Place. That's a one-way going up. And we had an event there. Everyone was hanging out, and I went to leave, and I'm like, oh, I got a flat tire. I went to around the corner, called Shaw, went to 7-Eleven, put air in my tire. I go back around again because I live downtown, so I said, I'll just squeeze by and see, you know, go up. And I'm like, oh my God, it's really weird with my tire. What the hell? I pulled over. I'm like, I'll just have one of the butch women change my tire. I'm like, I'm good with that. I get out, I'm looking at all the cars down the street, and they all got all the tires are flat. And I'm like, oh my God. So I went in and got a whole bunch of people. I'm like, guys, all our tires are slashed. Well, we thought it was because we were gay. So everyone's calling AAA to try and get help, and AAA's like, we're really sorry, you're going to have to wait. And we're like, what do you mean we have to wait? Well, somebody went and slashed tires all over New Bedford. We're like, yeah! And we're like, why? Because we were gay! Because we live in New Bedford! Oh my God! And we're like, yay! You know, but it's those little things that people don't understand, you know? That make us happy. My son was living in Providence, and he called me up. He's like, Mom, he goes, I just got attacked outside the bar. I go, what happened? He goes, somebody grabbed my phone and ran. I go, was it because you were gay? And he said, I don't think so. I think they just wanted my phone. And that's the first thing we ask, you know.
Right.
Was it gay related? Does it really matter? You know, some things, you know, certainly do. Let's see. We'll discuss Puzzles attack. So when Puzzles happened in February 2006, it actually made news media. I mean, the guy went down south. I believe he was on Most Wanted. Unfortunately, he killed the police officer, killed the lady he was with, and, you know, the police, I believe, ended up killing himself. But in 2006, to have news media, to have everybody care from here, and down south, we weren't sure how far it was going to go. You know, but to have everybody on board, and again, we just talked about those 5 states that, you know, most of those 52 murders or homicides happened in. It was great to see that our community, as well as others, were invested and involved.
I really do believe, you know, human beings, they really do care. Yeah, some of it's how we're brought up, somehow it's, you know, we're imprinted with these intolerances, if you will, and it doesn't really matter what religion you're from, because most religions do have a common thread that runs there through, and it's to treat your fellow man and woman, you know, with kindness and love and respect. And somehow that gets twisted around somewhere along the line. Yep. And it's unfortunate that we have tragedies, but sometimes out of the ashes rise some really good things. The human spirit really rises. When we talk about 2006, we've seen that. It was a very unfortunate, horrific tragedy for the victims in particular and their families. But we've become stronger, we've become better, we've become more tolerant, the dialogue is expanded, and we are in a much better place. I'm not advocating for violence and tragedy, but I'm saying we responded as a human race very well to it, as we had in many other cases. The trick is that we don't have, not to have tragedies for us to respond that way in everyday life, right?
Yep. Do you want any comments, questions, concerns?
We actually don't have any yet.
No hellos?
Nope.
No hellos?
That's just somebody
Same
spamming.
person over and over again?
Yep.
Stop that! I thought I was getting excited. I kept saying the
No,
news
sadly, nope, not yet.
Oh,
And you
God,
know,
help us.
it's funny that you bring up the point about people coming together, helping each other. You know, with what happened at, you know, my house, we were there, like I said, less than a year, and we didn't really know any of the neighbors. And when the New Bedford police started going around telling all the neighbors, they were like, why? What had happened? And literally everybody from the neighborhood just came over, you know, offered support. We were getting support from people online. People wanted to come over, repaint the fence, turn it into an art mural. And it's like, all right, wow. It's like, you know, obviously I lived in New Bedford all my life. I know there's bad, there's good. But this was, you know, one of the first times that this happened to, you know, not me specifically, but our house. So it was nice to see, you know, the words of encouragement from everybody online. I mean, yeah, there was, you know, random people here and there, you know, saying whatever, but overall, it was amazing. And a lot of that had to do with, the help from the police department, the help from New Bedford Guide, and the help from other Facebook groups, getting the word out there what had happened. So it was amazing to see. So I do agree with you that when people offer support, it not so much lessens what happened, but it gives them hope again. So I do agree with you on that.
So, hate is everywhere. And prejudices are everywhere. And I don't think unfortunately, we're ever going to be able to pull the Harry Potter wand and just eradicate that completely, right? But if the truth be told, and this is just my own personal opinion, in New Bedford, we have some of it, but it's very little. I think most people in New Bedford are loving, caring, tolerant people. And when they see someone being victimized, regardless, especially as you just described, they're going to come out. They're going to come out and they're going to be supportive and they're going to be kind and they're going to want to help, because that's what we have here in New Bedford. It's a really great city. And if you haven't traveled outside New Bedford, it's easy to criticize New Bedford. It's easy to look at the negative pieces of it, but that's in any corner of society, anywhere. But what we have here that is different, we have a caring, charitable community that is very tolerant and very diverse. And I'm proud of this city and the people in it. I really am.
Yeah, I've been here, I think, 18 years now, 19 years, same place. I love where I'm at. Whenever, if I have a problem, I've called the anonymous tip line, because I don't want my neighbors to know that it was me that called,
right.
Especially I'm on first floor windows, I keep them locked all the time, but God forbid something happens. So I've called the tip line, letting them know that there's a situation that's happened in my neighborhood. I don't want my name or who it is. So, we talk about, if you don't want to say who you are, call the tip line.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just certain things that, you don't want people to know that you're, I don't know, what's that word, squealing? What's that word people use?
Right. Yeah, so snitches,
Snitches.
can I talk about that real quick? Because I talk about it all the time, right? So the word out there is snitches get stitches. Well, this is what we're trying to change. Silence leads to violence. So if you're silent, someone may eventually get hurt because of violence. So you can give us that information anonymously on the tip line. You can go on our website. You go right on our website. You can write on the top. You can text us anonymously. It'll ask you for your name. You can put Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse. We really don't care.
Yeah.
Just give us the information. That's all we care about. But by remaining silent, somebody can get hurt. Mm-hmm. And that someone could be someone you really care about, or the life you save may be your own. So please get that information to us. We do not tolerate hate in the city. We don't get a lot of hate crimes, thank God. But we need to know so we can eradicate it.
Yep. The other thing I see all the time on Facebook is people take videos of things that are happening.
Yes.
Send it to the police if you happen to see something. What was it? A couple months ago, the people on the ATVs down 18. I'm like, oh my God.
They're gonna kill somebody
over on the highway. Yeah.
Oh my God. It just kills me. Send it in to the police. Just say, listen, I want to let you know. Here you go. Send it in. I saw it. I think it was in the Bedford Guide.
Tell us where they live, because there's somebody's neighbor.
Yeah.
You can text it to us. You can put it in the email.
I've seen that ATV before. I know.
It's in my neighbor's yard. Just say they live at 123 Main Street, second floor. Thank you. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some dangerous situations out there. Just a couple things out there for the community news. We're actually having a volunteers meeting on April 23rd at 484 Pleasant Street from, I believe it's 6 to 7 at night. We have New Bedford Pride coming up on June 2nd, so we'll be having 2 police officers there as well. The Friday night before at Incognito, they'll be having a pre-party. And then we'll have after Pride from 11 to 4, we go to the place where we have, that's broken. I have 2 security guards. One does our front door, checks IDs, and one actually walks around and makes sure we're set. So if you're willing to volunteer for Pride or any other events that we have in the community, it's a good time to come in. We're going to do an overview of the network, an overview of Pride, a volunteer packet. We actually have a safety that we're going to be showing probably, like a week before Pride. We're letting them know, I hate saying it, active shooting. Just things to look out for in our community as you're walking out and about. We've never had anything happen at Pride, but as progression happens and people see us out there more, we're going to do a little bit more control as well as a fun Pride. So again, if you want to be a volunteer, you can come to a perfect place. That's our new LGBTQ youth center. Actually, it was a youth center, and now it's our community center because we've been growing. And again, Pride is June 2nd. If you look us up at South Coast South Coast LGBTQ Network Facebook page, you'll find out information about the vendors and our information packet and how to volunteer and stuff like that. Do you have anything you want to add, Dennis?
Again, thank you to you and the Bedford Police for everything that you do. Not just for the gay community, but for everybody here. I know at times it's got to be stressful for you guys.
A little bit, but I'd like to take a moment to thank you as well and your organization for being who you are and being true to who you are and encouraging other people to be who they are, because at the end of the day, we all are unique and we should be true to ourselves and not apologize for it. We're not franchises, and we're all going to be like one another. So I thank you for promoting that and being true to yourself.
If you guys have any questions you want to ask us offline, you can look at, Eileen's not here today. We'll pretend Dennis is Eileen. Eileen at sclgbtqnetwork.org or Tracy with an I at sclgbtqnetwork.org. And next week's show is actually changing it up a little bit. We've done a show of, Dennis was on our show. It was parents who have gay kids. We actually had one of our shows where we had folks who chose to be parents, and then next week's show is actually kids who have gay parents. What it's like for them to grow up and have gay parents. And one of my best friends, Susan's going to be on the show. She has a son and a granddaughter, so they're going to be on next week's show. So that's it for us, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Thanks for having me.
God help us. Nobody's sure.